You're listening to Unshaken, the Hope Dealer podcast, where we rise, heal, and make no excuses. I'm your host, Jason Brooks. Let's turn trauma into truth and pain into power. Let's go. What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Jason, back with another fabulous episode of Unshaken, the Hope Dealer podcast. I'm so grateful that you're back with us listening to this episode. This is our 7th episode of this inaugural season. And again, I'm so grateful that you are here with us. This episode hits home for me for a variety of reasons, but especially if you are new into recovery, or, if you're in your first year of recovery, or if you are just, sober curious. But this is a good episode for you because a lot of times people are intimidated, or they're just nervous, or they don't know what to say if they go to a bar, or if they go to a social gathering, whether it's a Christmas party, a business function, or just a gathering in particular. But they get this question a lot, and it's hey, what are you having to drink? Or you just don't know what to say. And I've never quite understood why it's such a taboo question, or why it's so hard for people to understand, or so tough for people to answer. I guess for me personally, simply because I am so open and honest and transparent with my feelings about it. Like, literally, if somebody says, "Jason, do you drink?" No, I don't. Jason, why don't you drink? Because I don't effing want to. Like, I don't really care that people judge me, or that people have an opinion about why I drink. I just don't care, because I put my business out there. I'm very social. I'm out there on social media. I put it out there because my whole intent is to be able to help people, to be able to share my story. So, I guess I've never really understood why it's so difficult for people. But after listening to other people, I actually do understand. So, I do take that back. I wanted to have this episode to share some different ideas or some different responses that will maybe help you in your journey to sobriety, or through your first year recovery, beyond. Or again, if you're just, sober curious, and, you are around people that you're accustomed to being with, and it's a new road for you. And, they're going to say, "Hey, John, why aren't you drinking? You drank last week. You drank last month. Why aren't you drinking now?" So I want to give you some different ways that you can overcome this without feeling guilty or without feeling bad. I mean, at the end of the day, it's nobody's business, really. I mean, you're free to do what you want without feeling guilty about it. But without further ado, let's jump right into this. So I can remember, going on 4 years ago, when I, came out of rehab, and I was, fresh into recovery. Everybody's on their own timeline, right? So with me, I was so eager to prove myself that, I was sober and that I could do this. And that's, probably a problem of mine with everything in life. I try to take the bull by the horns and just try to go full speed ahead and prove myself, no matter what it is, regardless if it's my job, when it's sales, or, hitting quotas, or again, when I excelled in sports, I always wanted to be number one. That's just my personality. But, my first year, I wanted to be able to get out and be Mr. Social, right? And so I wanted to be able to go out, be around friends, go to a bar, and be able to go out and, you know, socialize with everybody else and be able to prove myself. And I remember I didn't want to go to the bar, walk up to the bar and order a drink, obviously not an alcoholic drink. I wasn't ready for that part, but I was ready to just be out to socialize. So I thought. So I sent one of my buddies up to the bar to get me just a Diet Coke. And I remember the place that we were at. You just had that feeling that somebody doesn't like you. That's kind of the feeling that I had, and I guess this is a place that I had frequented when I did drink, and I drank quite a lot. So I just had this feeling when I got the drink that I don't know that it was going to have alcohol in it. So Like it's literally as soon as it touched my lips, I could just taste alcohol. So, and if you're, whether you're sober curious or you're an alcoholic or an addict, like for me, an alcoholic and at being an addict, I take it extremely serious, right? So in my book, just a taste of alcohol to me, like if I swallowed it, to me, that's ruining my sobriety. So as soon as I got the taste of it, as soon as it touched my lips, like I literally slammed my drink down and stormed out. So, you want to make sure, and the old saying is, if you hang out long enough at the barber shop, you're going to get your hair cut, right? So from that point forward, I didn't go out. I didn't go out for the longest time because at that point, I knew that I just was not ready. Like, so that's the first thing. Is don't go out till you know that you're ready. Don't force yourself. Don't try to be like me, Mr. Cool Guy, Mr. Try to prove myself to other people, try to prove it to myself. Take your time, grow, learn about yourself. Don't try to fast track your recovery. That's the most important thing. So, but again, the whole purpose of this is I want to give you some ways where if you go out, if you have the tough question, Jason, why don't you drink? Yeah, for me, it's really easy. If I drink, my drinking doesn't stop. Hey, Jason, why don't you drink? One drink for me turns into jail. One drink for me turns into me getting a bag, and then I party all night long. Therefore, I can't drink. I have an addictive personality, so I can't drink. So, one thing these days is sobriety has become a lot more in vogue, right? So now, I don't know if you see it, but quite a bit, there's like dry January, dry February. So, if you're somebody that's just simply sober curious, it's easy just to say, I'm having a dry month, right? This month I'm committed to shedding 5 pounds, or I'm committed to clearing up my skin, or I'm just trying to commit to helping out my blood pressure per my doctor. That's an easy out for you, right? Another thing you could do is simply when you walk into a bar or social gathering is almost every place these days has non-alcoholic beers or mocktails. And you know what? I was really against mocktails and NA beers. I still would never touch an NA beer because I was never a beer drinker to begin with. But I was really against mocktails in the beginning because to me it was like kind of like a gateway type thing. But now I drink mocktails, right? So now, if you wanted to, when you walk into a place before anybody ever sees, you just grab a mocktail. Nobody's ever going to know the difference, right? So you could just grab mocktails. Again, nobody's ever going to know the difference. Or you could grab an NA beer. Nobody's going to ever know the difference. Another thing you could do is I have an early morning tomorrow. I got an early meeting tomorrow. I got to hit the gym in the morning. Health is a huge thing today. People are so worried about their health. Medications is a big one, right? It's, I'm on a new medication. It doesn't mix, alcohol doesn't mix with this. So I can't drink. I can't do anything that's going to counter with my medication. So, that's another easy way. If you're sober curious, you could also say, you can just blame it on the night before. I had a long night last night. So therefore, I'm not drinking tonight. I got to give my body a rest. I'm getting up there in age, I'm 38. My body just doesn't recover like it used to. So I got to give myself a night. I don't bounce back like I used to. I got to give, my body takes a couple days to recover. I'm not 25 anymore. So, I definitely got to take that extra time. Obviously, these are for people that are simply sober curious. I'm definitely not suggesting this to people that are actually sober or in recovery. So, for those of you that are actually in recovery, throw those out completely. My suggestion to those that are in recovery are simply to be 1,000% honest with yourself. And quite honestly, if you are sober in recovery and your life depends on it, like you're an alcoholic or you're an addict like me, our lives depend on it, right? With me, for instance, I cannot have a drink. If I have a drink, I have to go get a bag and my life is over. Like I know I cannot have a drink. If I have a drink, I'm going to die. And I'm not joking. I am not joking because I cannot drink without going and getting me a bag of cocaine. If I go get me a bag of cocaine right now, my heart will probably literally explode just because I did it for so effing long, so much quantity, and now given my body a break, and now my body is not used to it. Probably one bump, my heart would literally explode. Or even if it didn't, I would crave it again and crave it again and crave it again. And I know how I used to be, and I would go right back to it. So I can't drink. So just be honest, transparent with people. Like, I don't drink. I cannot drink. And on that, if anybody asks you and they know that you're in recovery, they know that you're sober, number one, you need to cut them out your life. Cut them out of your life. I said this in a previous episode, but when I went to recovery and I made that decision to go to recovery, I touched base with people that I knew that I could not associate with anymore. And some of those people weren't happy with it, right? Some of those people were no longer going to benefit from me being an addict and being an alcoholic and being a user because they used me. I mean, let's be real, right? I was a huge giver. I shared my drugs with everybody. So those people were pissed off that I cut them off. That's what you need to do. You need to cut off people that are pushing you. If they are insisting that you drink, or even if they even ask you to drink, if they even say, why aren't you having a drink? Or do you want to have a drink? If they ask you one time, cut them out of your life. Be alone. Learn about yourself. Get that positive energy. Surround yourselves with like minded individuals that build you up and are going to support your sobriety and your recovery. Another thing is, I'm going to drop some information on the screen and also in the chat regarding SAMHSA. And I'm also going to do another podcast episode that I think is really important about triggers, right? The who, what, when, and where about triggers. Like, what do you come across or where do you go that causes you to have the idea or the desire to drink or to drug? To me, that's another important episode, but I want to drop the contact information for SAMHSA because if you ever find yourself in a situation where somebody says, Jason, do you want to drink? It can be a serious trigger. And what I don't want you to do is find yourself in that situation where you are triggered. If you are at your first social gathering and somebody says, John, do you want to drink? And you're flustered, you're stressed out, you're overridden with anxiety, you just don't know what to say. Or even if you answer absolutely perfectly, I've had overwhelming anxiety before. To be quite honest with you, I didn't really get over it until this last year. Like, I've had events before where I was overridden with anxiety and then I just had to leave because I didn't know what else to do. So I don't want you to be in a situation like that I've been in. And I've almost been to the point where I've been tempted to have a drink. Luckily, I didn't. But I don't want you to be in the position that I was in and actually cross that bridge, have a drink, or have a drug. So I think it's very important that I drop the information in here. SAMHSA is a wonderful foundation. So I'm going to give you a toll-free number. They have contacts for rehabs, counselors, all the different contact information that's going to be really helpful to you, to your recovery, and also, for family members. But listen, it has been another great episode. I'm so, so, so grateful that you have been a part of this, part of my journey, and part of this community. But next week, we'll be back with another fabulous episode. Again, thank you so much for joining us for Unshaken, the Hope Dealer podcast. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Unshaken, the Hope Dealer podcast, where we turn trauma into truth and pain into power. If you've enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe and keep showing up for your healing. Until next time, stay brave, stay bold, and stay unshaken.